Welcome to On the Quayside, a series where we aim to meet up with and engage with many of the interesting maritime citizens from across the continent. As the only woman in Transnet's class of 1999, Theresa Williams became South Africa's first female marine pilot in 2001. She began her studies as a Portnet bursary student straight out of matric back in 1992. After completing 2 years at CPUT, Theresa joined Unicorn Shipping Lines for her sea time as a cadet training officer. Here she served aboard different vessels before qualifying as a ship navigation officer in 1998. Thereafter, and during her 11 years with Transnet, where she ultimately served as Marine Operations Manager, she also completed an MBA with the UNISA School of Business Leadership. With a passion for teaching, she became involved in mentorship and training of trainee tug masters and pilots, as well as in the selection and recruitment of Transnet cadets. Joining the private sector in 2015, Theresa completed a 2-year contract delivering maritime-related training programs in Western and Central African countries. She also served as a ship navigation officer with various companies in order to obtain the necessary sea time towards higher seagoing licenses. In between, she lectured in maritime studies at CPUT. Theresa was awarded a Chief Ship Navigation license by SAMHSA in 2018, and in that same year became Head of Maritime Studies Department at CPUT, breaking ground as the first female in this role. Welcome, Theresa. So, Let's just get into how you started off in the industry. You joined CPUT basically straight out of matric on a Portnet bursary. How did you come into contact with the industry, and how did you get to know about that?
Well, thank you very much, Colleen, for the invitation, and thank you to our viewers and our listeners. The way I got involved in the maritime industry is through my dad, Theresa Williams. He was working for Spoornet at the time, and as a shunter. My dad retired there after almost 40 years of service a couple of years ago. So initially, bursaries were offered to family members of the greater Transnet community. And for the bursary that I applied for, I needed to have maths and science at matric level. And so just after my matric passing, I applied for the bursary. And yes, and that is how I got to know about the bursary. And should I elaborate on that?
Did you have any clue what you were getting yourself into?
Again, because Transnet used to have family days for the employees and the families as I was growing up as a kid. I was fortunate to go on tugboat rides as an 8-year-old, as a 9-year-old.
Wow.
So I was very, very fortunate to have that exposure in the Port of Cape Town.
So that just goes to show you the importance of maritime awareness and introducing our youth to the industry at a young age.
Absolutely. It's very, very critical to have that awareness. Even though I was exposed in that way, I didn't really know because it was still very much, it wasn't yet open to actually be able to work on a vessel, work on a tugboat when I was a child. So I saw it. And but obviously the bursary came along after matric, and I was, part of the first group of people of color to be able to actually enter the industry.
So, both people of color and as a woman, you were breaking ground there. So that's great. Just looking back at your time at sea, is there any part of you that wishes that you had perhaps dedicated your life to a career at sea? Or are you glad to be ashore now?
There's a big part of me that wishes I could actually be on a ship right now. I love the ocean. I have a tremendous passion for it. I'm drawn to water. So it's a first love for me. I'm not a great swimmer, believe it or not. I couldn't swim as a child, even into adulthood. I couldn't swim. I started swimming 3 years ago.
Wow.
I finally went for lessons when I could. And but the ocean, I'm drawn to it. So I would have liked to to stay at sea a bit longer. As you can see from my career, now and then I step back in there, just to keep my feet in the industry and to know what's going on board ships, to learn in terms of technology as well. So yeah, I do miss it.
And just looking back at that, and in terms of becoming the first female marine pilot in South Africa, do you think that the challenges that existed for women back then are still the same challenges that exist today, or have we evolved by 2020?
I would say, Colleen, the biggest challenge that existed, say 20, 25 years ago, was the fact that we were so few females. Yeah. The guys being, dominant in the industry, they have like a brothership. And as a female alone, it's tricky at times. It was tricky at times. And I think the biggest challenge, having overcome that now currently, is the fact that there are so many females in every single area of maritime, whether it's on board vessels or on land. There are so many females, and especially with what Transnet is doing. I mean, there are women all over. And it has created a sense of camaraderie and groups of women who are supporting each other that makes doing the job at times much easier. Yeah.
I've noticed that too. I mean, I've been in the industry for over 2 decades as well, and certainly the prevalence of women these days is much higher. And I mean, just a case in point, the On the Quayside segment at the moment, I've got so many women that I want to interview that I don't think I'll ever get to the men. So you've come full circle back to CPUT now, and the head of department. That's quite a challenge, especially during this year. How are you finding your feet? What are the main challenges in the training space at the moment?
Yeah, so it's 3rd year into my role as head of department. It's been a phenomenal experience in making the transition from where we were to where we currently are and where we're going to. And definitely technology plays a big role in that. The COVID-19 pandemic has fast-forwarded our technological plans.
Yeah.
My vision for the department is that it's for both my staff and my students to be developed. I'm a developer of people. So I'm very much focused on my team that supports me to be able to do my job effectively and to grow them, groom them, develop them, and giving them the space to grow into their own level of leadership. And I know when they are where they need to be, our students are in good hands. So it's a parallel path in grooming my team for the technology stages that we're going through, and in terms of absorbing the kind of South African and African student that we have, and to ready them for the future that we are facing, whether on board or on land. And that's a bigger vision that I'm busy with. So it's exciting.
And part of the what you've been involved in over the last year was last 2 years, it was to group the institutions in South Africa under the banner of the Maritime Academies Institute of South Africa.
Yes. So it's the Maritime Academic Institute of South Africa. So it's MAHISA. So it's all the institutes, colleges that is offering maritime academic programs and qualifications, and with intentions to do so. And just to form a strong body of collaboration and support, and supporting each other and getting ideas, because we must all meet the standards of SAMHSA, and to be able to collaborate together to submit what we need for the future, and to get SAMHSA on board in terms of partnering with us. And it's a work in progress. Sorry.
Is that collaboration working? I mean, because traditionally we see a lot of competition between institutions, but it's nice to see that there's that level of collaboration which provides you also with that level of advocacy in terms of dealing with SAMHSA.
Yes. It's small steps, Colleen. I think it's a very new body. And what I'm observing is that we all have similarities, but also differences in the program offering. So we're not all doing the same thing. And the visions of each unit or organization or institution is very, very different. And but I also do understand competition is healthy. Competition makes you review, revise, and say, okay, I've got to do things differently and better to stay relevant. So I think it's important to have that competition in the sector.
Yeah. Okay. So, and when I introduced you, I mentioned your stint in Africa. In terms of training, was that maritime related training?
Yes, it was. I was working as an officer at the time for MCS, and I was just off Point Noir, the Republic of Congo. And when I received an email, when a university in Italy, Maritime University in Italy, they were looking for experts in maritime. That was for a project funded by the European Union to basically write modules on port efficiency, leadership, management, finances, and entrepreneurship within the port space. And I was interviewed and I was selected as one of the consultants. And I ended up going to Cameroon, Togo, Ghana, and the Ivory Coast as well over a 2-year period. And I was actually, and I compiled the training material and I lectured it to the port authorities.
Okay.
Yes, and the maritime administrations in those countries and also of the universities there in the region. And that was phenomenal. And my experience that I'd gained in operations management within Transnet really assisted me, and as well as the private sector experience that I'd gained. So, and that experience was good to bring it back and to instill it or to use it in my job as HOD of Maritime at CPUT, and obviously to see this as a business in many ways, yeah.
And based on that experience, do you think there's an opportunity to broaden the scope of MEASA to say within an African space and try get the institutions across Africa to collaborate more for maritime training?
I do think there's an opportunity for cross-border collaboration, but I think what we need to first do in-house as a country is to decide in terms of the maritime education and training space, what is it that we're offering beyond our borders? As a collective or even individual as institutions, what is it that we're offering? What is it that we want to say to the continent about maritime education and training? And to almost come up with some kind of framework of what we want to sell to the continent. What I've experienced from engaging with the continent and through my networks there, our people across Africa are hungry to hear from South Africa, are very much hungry to get our expertise. We are very experienced people within South Africa. Sometimes we don't really know that. I think we need to collaborate more to get the message across and to really cross-collaborate within the country. I think we first need to do that, to get together as people and to get onto the same page of the products that we want to export. And I think it can be very successful if we can do that, if we can put our heads together and decide to do that and to actually to really work together to do that. And I think we can do something great. I think we all have networks and connections individually to put that together. Yeah.
How achievable is that in the short term, do you think?
I think in the short term it would be tricky because because of the individualism in the space. I think it will be tricky. I do think that it's been a disruptive year, that many things, many projects, many plans are on hold, many engagements, many opportunities to network, to get together, to trust each other, because it's a very trusting environment. You need to get together and see this person you're getting involved with or potentially in business with, even in a maritime academic space. And once we can overcome some of those barriers as South Africans, to, that acceptance, the trust, the togetherness, the real Ubuntu, then we can step across into our borders as a collective. And I think medium term, yeah.
And just, you touched there on the fact that COVID has made us readdress ambitions and goals for the year. So looking ahead, we've only got where are we now? October. We've only got 2 months left of the year. What would you give yourself as a main goal to complete for 2020?
2020. Quite honestly, my 2020 year is ending in February 2021. My main goal is to ensure that my team is well at CPUT. That from a well-being, wellness perspective, that they're okay, the family's okay, and get through this academic. It's been a hard year on my team, exceptionally so. And so that we can get our students across that finish line of the 2020 academic year. That is the only goal that I have, honestly.
Well, that sounds achievable. I know it's not been easy this year for any academic institution, so I wish you well in that. And thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that we'll have further news from CPUT and the academic space as a whole.
You will. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure.